The incident. James Hall stepped out of his sleek black sedan, the sunlight glinting off its polished surface. He adjusted his tailored suit, taking a moment to absorb the grandeur of the Westwood Hotel before him. This wasn't just any meeting. It was a pivotal moment in his career, one that could solidify his status as a top-tier entrepreneur in the tech industry. However, an inexplicable tension gripped him as he approached the grand entrance, feeling the weight of the expectations resting on his shoulders. The hotel lobby was immaculate, with opulent chandeliers casting a warm glow over the marble floors. As he walked inside, a slight chill swept through him, not from the air conditioning, but from the palpable gazes directed his way. James was no stranger to the curious stares. As a successful black businessman, he had faced skepticism and prejudice throughout his career. But today felt different. Today, the air was thick with an unspoken animosity that gnawed at his confidence. He approached the front desk, where a young receptionist with carefully styled hair wore a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. James cleared his throat, offering a polite greeting. "Good afternoon. I have a reservation under the name James Hall." The receptionist's fingers flew over the keyboard, her eyes darting between the screen and James. A brief flicker of discomfort crossed her face, and he could sense her hesitation. After a moment that stretched like an eternity, she looked up, her smile faltering. "I'm sorry, sir, but it seems there might be a mistake. Are you sure you're at the right hotel?" James felt a surge of irritation. "I'm certain this is the Grand Westwood Hotel," he replied, striving to keep his voice steady and composed. He could feel the weight of the stares from guests nearby, their expressions a mix of curiosity and judgment. Before he could respond further, a tall man in a well-tailored suit approached, exuding an air of authority. This was Mr. Collins, the hotel manager, who immediately focused his condescending gaze on James. "Is there a problem here?" Collins asked, his voice smooth yet laced with disdain. The receptionist hesitated, casting a sideways glance at James. "This gentleman claims he has a reservation, but I couldn't find it in our system." Collins's lips curled into a thin smile that was anything but inviting. "I'm afraid we don't have any record of your reservation, sir. Are you sure you booked a room here?" His tone dripped with skepticism, as if James were an intruder rather than a guest. "I am certain," James replied, forcing down the frustration boiling within him. "I can show you the confirmation email if that helps." Collins waved his hand dismissively, the smirk never leaving his face. "That won't be necessary. However, we do have certain standards here, and I must ask you to leave if you don't have a confirmed reservation." The tension in the lobby thickened like fog. James could sense the judgment in the eyes around him, the silent accusations that painted him as a trespasser in a world he had worked tirelessly to penetrate. The humiliation was suffocating, but he refused to back down. "I have a confirmed reservation. I'm here for an important meeting. Please check again," he insisted, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. Collins's expression darkened. He gestured to the security guard stationed nearby. "Gentlemen," he commanded, his voice booming, "please escort this man out of the hotel. He's clearly mistaken." James felt his heart race as two security guards approached, their hands poised near their radios. Panic began to claw at the edges of his composure. He had no intention of making a scene, but he wasn't about to let them throw him out without a fight. Reaching into his pocket to retrieve his phone, he intended to show them the confirmation email, but the guards misinterpreted his movement. "Hands where I can see them," one of the guards barked, his voice resonating through the now silent lobby. Guests turned their heads, their eyes wide with a mix of intrigue and horror. James felt the frustration surge again, but he kept his voice firm. "I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just getting my phone to show you the email." "Sir, we need you to comply," the other guard insisted, stepping closer, his stance growing more aggressive. The lobby buzzed with whispers, the atmosphere crackling with tension as the crowd watched the unfolding drama. James realized then that he stood alone against the tide of prejudice. He took a deep breath, determined to maintain his dignity in this hostile environment. "This is not how you treat a guest," he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. "I belong here just as much as anyone else." Collins's eyes narrowed, and a cold smile crept across his face. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, sir. Our establishment has a reputation to uphold, and you don't quite fit the bill." The humiliation washed over him, but instead of retreating, something ignited within James. He thought of the sacrifices he had made to get to this point in his life, the long nights and the relentless pursuit of his dreams. The strength of his ancestors surged through him, fueling his resolve. "You don't know who you're dealing with," he replied, his voice low but filled with an intensity that caught Collins off guard. In that moment, James recognized an opportunity, a chance to turn this humiliation into a lesson, not just for himself, but for those who dared to judge him. He would not walk away defeated. The world would know his name, and they would remember this day. As the guards moved closer, he took a step back and raised his hands, but not in surrender. "If you want me to leave, fine. But mark my words, you will regret this moment. I will be back." The silence that followed was deafening, a collective intake of breath from the onlookers who witnessed the scene. With that, James turned on his heel and walked out of the hotel, the echoes of his footsteps resonating in the marble hall. He stepped outside, the cool breeze brushing against his skin, a stark contrast to the heat of the confrontation he had just left behind. But he wasn't walking away empty-handed. He had a plan. The plan. Once outside the stifling confines of the Grand Westwood Hotel, James Hall leaned against the cool metal of his car, allowing the adrenaline from the confrontation to dissipate. The air felt different here, charged with potential rather than judgment. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment to center himself before stepping inside his car. The world around him had shifted. He could feel it deep in his bones. As he navigated through the bustling city streets, his mind raced. The humiliation he had faced that day would not be in vain. James wasn't just any businessman. He was a trailblazer who had overcome countless barriers. The incident would serve as a spark, a motivation to amplify the voices of those who had been silenced and overlooked in the corporate landscape. He reached for his phone, fingers trembling slightly with a mix of anger and determination as he dialed his trusted partner, Maria. "Hey, Maria, it's James," he said, forcing a calmness into his voice that didn't quite match the turmoil brewing inside him. "We need to meet. Something significant has happened." "James, what's wrong?" "You sound off," she replied, her tone shifting to concern. "It's a long story. Let's just say I had a rather unpleasant experience at the Grand Westwood Hotel today. Can you meet me at the office in 30 minutes? I need your insight on something important." "Of course. I'll be there." As he drove, James couldn't help but replay the events in his mind. The cold stares from guests, the condescension dripped from Collins's voice, the escalation with the security guards. It all crystallized into a singular thought. This was not just about one man's dignity, but rather a systemic issue that required urgent attention. Too many people had suffered in silence. It was time to make noise. Arriving at the office, he stepped into the sleek, modern space that had become a sanctuary for innovation and empowerment. The walls were adorned with photographs of diverse teams celebrating successes, reminding him of the very essence of what he stood for: breaking barriers, challenging norms, and driving change. He spotted Maria waiting for him in the conference room, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. "What happened?" she asked as soon as he walked in, her arms crossed tightly against her chest. James took a seat across from her and recounted the entire incident, his initial confidence, the dismissive attitude of the hotel staff, and finally the confrontation with Collins and the security guards. Each word carried the weight of his frustration and the spark of inspiration that had ignited within him. "That's absolutely appalling," Maria exclaimed, her eyes widening in disbelief. "You were treated like a criminal in a place that prides itself on luxury and hospitality. This is the kind of behavior we've been fighting against. I know, James replied, leaning forward, his voice steady. But this isn't just about me. It's about everyone who's ever faced prejudice in a public space. What if we use this experience to launch a campaign? Something that brings awareness to racial bias in the hospitality industry. Maria nodded, her brows furrowed in concentration. We could create a platform that not only shares your story but also collects experiences from others. It would provide a space for people to voice their struggles and challenges. James's heart raced at the idea. Yes, we could partner with organizations that advocate for equality and fairness in hospitality. Together, we could hold establishments accountable for their actions and set a standard for what true inclusivity looks like. What do you envision this campaign looking like? Maria asked, her entrepreneurial spirit igniting. I want it to be multifaceted, he began, pacing the room as his thoughts flowed. First, we need to create an online platform where people can share their stories anonymously. We can compile these experiences and highlight trends. Show the world that this isn't an isolated incident, but a systemic issue. Maria took out her notepad, jotting down notes as she listened intently. And we could hold a press conference to officially launch the campaign. You could share your story, and we could invite others to speak up too. Exactly. We need to put a face to this issue. Real stories from real people, James continued. Excitement building. And we should engage with media outlets, create videos, and even start a social media campaign that encourages people to share their experiences with the hashtag we create. As he spoke, Maria's expression shifted from concern to fervor. We could even approach influential figures in the industry, chefs, hotel owners, and activists, to support our cause. Their involvement would lend credibility and amplify our reach. James nodded enthusiastically, envisioning a movement that could ripple across the nation. Let's also consider collaborating with universities to conduct research on the impact of racial bias in hospitality. The data would provide concrete evidence that this is a pervasive issue that needs to be addressed. Brilliant, Maria said, her eyes shining with determination. We could create an educational component that informs hospitality professionals about bias and discrimination, providing training and resources to help them improve their practices. James's mind was racing, the ideas flowing like a torrent. And what if we partnered with influential bloggers and social media influencers to help spread the word? Their platforms could help us reach a broader audience. Absolutely. We need to make this a movement, Maria agreed, her excitement palpable. Let's start drafting a plan. We'll need a timeline, a budget, and a list of potential partners. But we can't waste time. We need to get the ball rolling as soon as possible. James felt a surge of gratitude for Maria's unwavering support. She had always been his rock, someone who not only understood his vision, but also challenged him to push boundaries further. Together, they could turn this moment of personal struggle into a beacon of hope for many. As they worked late into the evening, brainstorming and outlining their ideas, James felt a sense of purpose like never before. He was no longer just a victim of prejudice. He was becoming a voice for change. Each keystroke felt like a declaration, a commitment to fighting for justice in a world that often ignored the struggles of the marginalized. Hours later, as the city lights twinkled outside their office windows, they finalized their plan. We'll kick off with a press release tomorrow, James announced, feeling a rush of exhilaration. And I'll reach out to some contacts in the media to get their support. Let's make sure to create a strong visual identity for the campaign, Maria suggested. We need a logo, a tagline, something that resonates with people. James nodded, already envisioning the possibilities. How about Voices for Change? It captures the essence of what we're trying to achieve. That's perfect, Maria replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. We'll make it happen, James. We're going to turn this around. As they prepared to leave for the night, James felt a renewed sense of hope. He had transformed his pain into purpose, and he was ready to take on the world. Tomorrow, he would not only fight for his dignity, but also for the dignity of countless others who had been denied their rightful place. The journey ahead would not be easy, but he was more than ready to face the challenges that lay ahead. With determination fueling him, James stepped out of the office, the city air wrapping around him like a warm embrace. This was just the beginning. The Grand Westwood Hotel had underestimated him, but they would soon learn that the tides were changing. Rallying the voices. The next morning, James woke early, driven by a sense of urgency that had replaced the anger he had felt just a day prior. The events at the Grand Westwood Hotel were now a catalyst for something far greater than himself. He had an agenda to pursue, a campaign to launch, and he was determined to make an impact. As the sun rose over the city, he could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, not just for himself, but for those whose voices had been silenced for too long. He poured himself a strong cup of coffee and settled at his desk, the quiet of the morning punctuated only by the sounds of the city waking up outside. The faint hum of traffic and the distant chatter of early risers provided a comforting backdrop as he began drafting the press release for their campaign, Voices for Change. It would be the announcement that would set their plan in motion, and it needed to be powerful. Drafting the message. With each keystroke, James poured his heart into the message. He aimed to convey not just his experience, but the collective experience of countless individuals who had faced discrimination. His words needed to resonate, to invoke empathy and inspire action. He started with a personal note, sharing the details of his encounter at the hotel and how it had opened his eyes to a harsh reality that many endured daily. "This isn't just about me," he wrote. "It's about a system that has repeatedly marginalized voices based on race, background, and socioeconomic status. Today, I stand not only for myself, but for every individual who has ever felt the sting of exclusion, judgment, and discrimination." He outlined the goals of the campaign: to raise awareness about racial bias in the hospitality industry, to create a platform for sharing personal experiences, and to hold establishments accountable for their actions. He included a call to action, urging individuals to share their own stories and join the movement for change. As he polished the final draft, Maria arrived at the office, her energy infectious. "Good morning. Have you sent it out yet?" she asked, her voice bright and eager. "Not yet," James replied, a hint of nervousness creeping into his tone. "I wanted to finalize it first. I think it's crucial we get this right." She leaned over his shoulder, scanning the document. "It looks incredible. It's powerful and authentic. I think it'll resonate with so many people." Feeling encouraged, James took a deep breath and hit send. Within moments, his inbox began flooding with responses from journalists, advocates, and organizations interested in covering their story. The excitement surged through him as the first seeds of momentum were sown. Building the network. Over the next few days, James and Maria worked tirelessly to build a network of supporters. They'd reached out to their contacts, inviting influential figures to share their stories, artists to create visual content, and community leaders to lend their voices to the campaign. Social media was abuzz with hashtags and shares, each post amplifying their message and drawing attention to the issue at hand. The response was overwhelming. Emails poured in from individuals across the country, each sharing personal accounts of discrimination and exclusion. Some recounted experiences similar to James at the Grand Westwood, while others spoke of everyday struggles that went unnoticed. James felt a deep sense of solidarity with each story he read. It was a reminder that they were not alone in their fight. Inspired by the shared experiences, James and Maria decided to host a virtual town hall meeting, inviting people from all walks of life to join the conversation. They promoted it through their social media channels, encouraging participants to share their stories and discuss how they could work together to create change. On the day of the event, James felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He logged into the virtual meeting room, where a diverse group of participants had gathered. Activists, educators, business owners, and everyday citizens, all united by a common goal. "Welcome," Everyone, he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Thank you for joining us today. This is a space for all of us to share our experiences, to learn from one another, and to inspire change. The discussion flowed organically, each participant contributing their stories and ideas. James was struck by the raw emotion present in the room. People spoke candidly about their fears, their dreams, and their frustrations. It was clear that many had longed for a platform like this, one where they could voice their struggles without fear of judgment. A turning point. Midway through the meeting, a young woman named Angela spoke up, her voice trembling with emotion. I faced discrimination in my job as a server for years. I've been told I don't fit the image they want to project. It's exhausting to always have to prove myself, to fight for my worth in a world that constantly undermines it. James could feel the weight of her words. You're not alone, Angela, he responded, his heart aching for her. Your experience is shared by so many. This is exactly why we're here, to ensure that no one else has to feel that way. The meeting continued, and as stories unfolded, a theme emerged: resilience. Participants spoke about their determination to rise above adversity, to create spaces where everyone could feel valued. By the end of the meeting, James felt a surge of hope. They were building a community, a movement that could push back against the injustices they had all faced. As the session wrapped up, James felt a newfound sense of responsibility. I want to thank each of you for being here and for sharing your stories, he said, his voice filled with conviction. Let's continue to connect and support one another. Together, we can make a difference. We will not be silenced. After the meeting concluded, Maria turned to him, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. That was incredible. The energy in the room was electric. People are ready for change, and we can lead that charge. James nodded, a smile spreading across his face. We need to keep this momentum going. Let's document these stories and share them as part of our campaign. We need to show the world the faces behind these experiences. Taking action. Inspired by the success of the town hall meeting, James and Maria began to craft a series of events aimed at raising awareness and driving change. They organized workshops focusing on bias training for hospitality workers and business owners, collaborating with experts in the field to provide comprehensive and impactful sessions. They also planned a major launch event for Voices for Change, envisioning a night of storytelling, art, and community engagement. The goal was to create a space where individuals could share their experiences in front of a live audience, fostering connection and understanding. As the weeks passed, their campaign gained traction. Local businesses began to express interest in partnering with them, wanting to support their mission. They secured a venue for their launch event, a beautiful community center that could accommodate a sizable crowd. As the date approached, James could feel the excitement in the air. In the midst of their preparations, James received an unexpected email from a prominent news outlet expressing interest in covering their campaign. This could be our breakthrough, he thought, adrenaline surging through him. He quickly arranged for an interview, ready to share their mission with a broader audience. The day of the interview arrived, and James found himself sitting across from a seasoned journalist. What inspired you to start the Voices for Change campaign? She asked, her notebook ready for his response. James leaned forward, his heart racing with anticipation. My inspiration came from a personal experience of discrimination, but it quickly evolved into something much larger. I realized that this isn't just about me. It's about all of us who have faced prejudice and exclusion. This campaign aims to provide a platform for these stories, to create awareness, and to drive change within the hospitality industry and beyond. As he spoke, he could see the journalist's interest peaked. We need to change the narrative surrounding race and discrimination, he continued passionately. No one should have to fight for their place in the world, and through Voices for Change, we're working to ensure that everyone has a seat at the table. After the interview, James felt invigorated. He had shared their vision with a broader audience, and he knew it would resonate with many. As he left the studio, he felt the weight of the world still on his shoulders. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of hope, a belief that change was not just possible, but inevitable. With each passing day, they were getting closer to their goal, and James was more determined than ever to see it through. The campaign was no longer just a personal endeavor. It had transformed into a movement, one that promised to uplift voices and bring about real change. As the launch event approached, he knew they were ready to take the next big step in their fight for justice and equality. The launch event. The night of the Voices for Change launch event had finally arrived, and James Hall stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his tie for what felt like the 100th time. The anticipation in the air was electric, and as he looked at his reflection, he couldn't help but feel a mix of nerves and excitement. This was more than just an event. It was a pivotal moment in a movement that had the potential to reshape conversations around race and discrimination in the hospitality industry. The venue was the heart of the city, a spacious community center adorned with vibrant artwork and banners that proclaimed the event's purpose. The walls were lined with photographs of diverse individuals smiling, laughing, and coming together in solidarity. James had worked tirelessly to ensure that the environment reflected the spirit of unity and hope that he envisioned for the campaign. As guests began to trickle in, James stepped outside the main hall to take a moment for himself. The sound of laughter and chatter filled the air, a testament to the enthusiasm surrounding the event. Maria joined him, her face lit up with excitement. "Look at all these people. This is amazing," she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with energy. James nodded, feeling a sense of pride wash over him. "It's incredible to see so many people come together for this cause. It feels like we're on the brink of something big." They made their way back into the hall, where the crowd had swelled to a lively gathering of activists, business owners, artists, and everyday citizens. James could see familiar faces among the crowd, those who had shared their stories during the virtual town hall meetings, as well as new supporters eager to learn more about the movement. Opening remarks. At the front of the room, a small stage had been set up, adorned with a banner featuring the campaign's logo, Voices for Change. As the lights dimmed, James stepped up to the microphone, his heart pounding in his chest. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, looking out at the sea of faces illuminated by the soft glow of string lights hanging from the ceiling. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "We are here to celebrate the power of our voices, to share our stories, and to ignite change in a world that has often silenced us." A ripple of applause swept through the audience, and James felt his confidence swell. He continued, recounting his personal experience at the Grand Westwood Hotel, how it had prompted him to start this campaign, and the overwhelming response they had received since then. He emphasized that this was just the beginning, a launchpad for a movement that sought to hold institutions accountable and foster a culture of inclusivity. "This isn't just about my story or any one individual's story," he declared. "It's about a collective journey toward justice. Each of us has the power to make a difference, and together we can create a world where everyone feels valued and respected, regardless of their background." The crowd erupted in applause, and James felt a surge of energy course through him. This was why he had fought so hard. This was the change he wanted to see. Sharing stories. As the event unfolded, James invited several speakers to share their experiences. Each individual took the stage, recounting their own stories of discrimination and resilience, each narrative weaving into the larger tapestry of the movement. There was Angela, who spoke candidly about her struggles as a server, and Marco, a chef who had faced barriers in the culinary world because of his ethnicity. Their stories resonated with everyone in the room, and the shared experiences forged a sense of camaraderie that was palpable. "I remember walking into a kitchen for the first time," Marco shared, his voice thick with emotion. "I was met with whispers and sidelong glances. I was told I didn't belong there, that I would never make it. But I pushed through. I refused to let their prejudices define me. The crowd responded with cheers and applause, affirming the strength of his spirit. James could see the impact these stories were having. Faces were lighting up, tears were being wiped away, and connections were being made. As the evening progressed, art became an integral part of the event. Local artists had created pieces that depicted themes of unity and resilience, and they were showcased throughout the venue. James had organized a segment where artists could share their work and the inspirations behind it. One artist, a young woman named Layla, shared a powerful piece that illustrated the struggles of marginalized communities. "This piece represents the barriers we face," she explained, her voice steady. "But it also symbolizes the hope and strength that lies within us. We will rise, we will speak, and we will not be silenced." Her words resonated deeply, and the audience erupted into applause, a collective affirmation of the resilience they all shared. Interactive engagement. To engage the audience further, James had arranged for interactive stations around the venue where attendees could share their own stories anonymously. With a simple note card and a pen, anyone could write down their experiences, fears, or hopes for the future. These cards would later be compiled into a digital anthology, showcasing the diverse narratives of individuals who had faced discrimination. As attendees moved from station to station, James took a moment to reflect on the night. He watched people connect, share laughter, and embrace one another. There was a sense of solidarity that filled the room, a feeling that they were all part of something greater. Maria approached him with a beaming smile. "James, this is incredible. Look at how people are engaging with the stations. They're really opening up. I can hardly believe it," he said, overwhelmed with gratitude. "This is exactly what we aimed for, creating a safe space for people to express themselves." As the evening wore on, James took a moment to step outside for some fresh air. The cool breeze felt refreshing against his skin, a stark contrast to the warmth inside. He looked up at the stars twinkling above, a reminder that they were just beginning to illuminate a path toward change. A surprise announcement. Just as he was lost in thought, Maria joined him outside, her excitement palpable. "James, we have a surprise for you." "What is it?" he asked, curiosity piqued. "We've arranged for a special guest to join us for the final segment of the evening. Someone who has been following our campaign closely and wants to lend their voice to the cause." James raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Who?" Before Maria could respond, the doors to the community center swung open, and in walked a well-known figure, Alana Reed, a prominent advocate for social justice and a celebrated author. The room erupted in applause as she made her way to the stage, her presence electrifying. "Wow," James whispered, his heart racing. "This is amazing." Alana approached the microphone, her charisma immediately captivating the audience. "Hello, everyone. I am honored to be here tonight with such a passionate group of individuals. Your stories inspire me, and the work you're doing through Voices for Change is incredibly important." James watched as Alana spoke with conviction about the need for solidarity in the fight against discrimination. She emphasized the importance of using one's platform to amplify the voices of the marginalized. "Change doesn't happen in isolation," she declared. "It requires community, collaboration, and unwavering resolve. You all are part of a movement that is bigger than any one of us, and together, you have the power to create lasting impact." With her words, she elevated the event to new heights, igniting the passion within everyone present. Alana then shared her own experiences with discrimination, recounting moments that had shaped her advocacy. The audience was riveted, hanging on her every word. "I stand here tonight, not just as an advocate, but as a fellow traveler on this journey," she said, her voice resonating through the hall. "Your fight is my fight, and I promise to lend my voice to this cause. Together, we will continue to break down the barriers that divide us." As Alana concluded her speech, James felt a surge of hope and determination. This was what the campaign was about: unity, shared struggles, and the power of collective voices. Closing moments. As the evening drew to a close, James returned to the stage to express his gratitude. "I want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight, for sharing your stories, and for standing together in solidarity. We are just getting started. Voices for Change is a movement built on our collective strength, and together, we will not be silenced." The applause that followed was thunderous, echoing through the venue as attendees rose to their feet in a standing ovation. The energy in the room was palpable, a shared commitment to the cause radiating from every corner. As guests mingled and exchanged contact information, James felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had successfully launched a movement, one that would continue to grow and evolve as more voices joined the chorus for change. Later that night, as James and Maria packed up, he couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. This was only the beginning. The connections forged that evening would serve as a foundation for future initiatives, and the stories shared would inspire many more. With the campaign gaining traction and attention, James knew that the fight against prejudice was far from over. But in that moment, surrounded by allies and supporters, he felt empowered. They were no longer just individuals battling discrimination. They were a united front, ready to confront the injustices of the world. As they left the venue, the night air was cool and crisp, filled with the echoes of laughter and determination. James turned to Maria, his heart full. "We did it. This is just the start of something monumental." Maria smiled brightly, her eyes shining with excitement. "Yes, and I can't wait to see where it leads us next." Together, they stepped into the night, knowing that they were on a path toward meaningful change, one that would resonate far beyond the walls of that community center. Rising momentum. In the weeks following the launch event of Voices for Change, the momentum of the campaign surged like a wave cresting towards the shore. James Hall and Maria worked tirelessly, fueled by the enthusiasm and support they had garnered from the community. Their mission had struck a chord, resonating not only with those who had attended the event, but also with individuals and organizations across the country. Media attention and community support. The coverage from local media outlets was extensive, with interviews and articles highlighting James's personal story and the overarching goals of the campaign. The message was clear. Discrimination had no place in any industry, particularly in hospitality, where customer service should be built on the principles of respect and dignity. As James scrolled through his social media feed, he noticed a video clip of Alana Reid speaking at their launch event had gone viral. It had been shared by influencers, activists, and organizations committed to social justice. The clip captured Alana's powerful words, reminding viewers of the importance of collective action. "We will not be silenced," she had proclaimed, her voice unwavering. As a result, inquiries began pouring in from various organizations wanting to partner with Voices for Change. James felt overwhelmed, yet invigorated by the prospects of collaboration. They were receiving requests from universities interested in incorporating bias training into their hospitality programs, and from local businesses eager to align themselves with the movement. "I can't believe the response we're getting," Maria said one afternoon as they reviewed emails together. "This is beyond what I imagined. It feels like we're creating a ripple effect." James nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "It's a testament to how deeply people resonate with these issues. They're ready for change, and we're here to lead the charge." Workshops and training sessions. In response to the growing interest, James and Maria organized a series of workshops and training sessions aimed at hospitality professionals. They invited industry experts to lead discussions on bias awareness, inclusive practices, and customer service that honored diversity. The first workshop took place at a popular hotel in the city, and James felt a thrill of anticipation as he prepared to speak to an audience of hotel staff and management. "This is a chance to directly influence change within the industry," he told Maria, who was setting up the audiovisual equipment. When the attendees began to filter in, James noticed a mix of expressions: curiosity, skepticism, and a hint of resistance. He reminded himself that change often begins with discomfort. As he took the stage, he began by recounting his experience at the Grand Westwood Hotel, making sure to frame it in a way that highlighted the systemic issues rather than focusing solely on personal grievance. "I want to share my story not to cast blame but to encourage reflection," he explained. "Each of us has the power to either perpetuate bias or dismantle it." He encouraged open dialogue, inviting attendees to share their thoughts and experiences. Some expressed concerns about losing business if they became too vocal about diversity issues. Others worried about their own biases, unsure how to confront them. James listened attentively, fostering an environment where vulnerability was welcomed. One manager raised her hand, hesitating before speaking. "I've seen situations where staff were treated differently based on race, but I didn't know how to intervene without creating conflict." James nodded, acknowledging the challenge. "It's tough, but as leaders, we have to set the standard. It starts with having those uncomfortable conversations and creating a culture where everyone feels valued. Your actions can inspire others to do the same." Building a movement. As the workshops progressed, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Participants reported feeling empowered to affect change within their own workplaces, eager to implement the strategies they had learned. James and Maria recognized the need to expand their efforts, so they created a structured program for ongoing training, allowing businesses to enroll in a comprehensive curriculum that included modules on cultural competence, inclusive hiring practices, and community engagement. They also launched an online platform where hospitality professionals could access resources, share best practices, and connect with one another. The platform featured videos from industry leaders, articles on the importance of diversity in business, and a forum for discussion. Within weeks, the community began to expand beyond the immediate city. Businesses from other states reached out, expressing interest in hosting workshops and learning more about the Voices for Change initiative. James and Maria found themselves traveling frequently, sharing their message and establishing a network of allies who were committed to fostering inclusivity. A growing network of allies. During one trip to a major city, James received an email from a renowned chef who had been following their campaign closely. Chef Maria Gonzalez, a celebrated figure in the culinary world, wanted to meet to discuss ways to collaborate. Intrigued and excited, James arranged a meeting at a popular restaurant owned by Chef Maria. As he walked into the bustling eatery, the aroma of spices filled the air, a sensory delight that spoke of creativity and passion. Chef Maria greeted him warmly, her energy infectious. "James, I'm so glad we could meet," she said, her enthusiasm evident. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. I've heard great things about your work," James replied, settling into a cozy corner table. Chef Maria wasted no time in expressing her admiration for Voices for Change. "What you're doing is groundbreaking," she said. "I believe that the culinary world can benefit greatly from your message. The kitchen is a melting pot of cultures, yet we still face issues of bias and discrimination." James nodded, recognizing the truth in her words. "Absolutely. It's crucial that we cultivate an environment where everyone feels respected and valued, not just in the dining room, but in the kitchen as well." The conversation flowed seamlessly as they discussed potential collaborations, from hosting joint events to creating a series of videos showcasing diverse chefs and their culinary journeys. Chef Maria's experience and connections could help amplify the campaign's message in ways James had not previously imagined. "Let's create something impactful together," she proposed. "I'd love to feature stories from underrepresented chefs in my network, highlighting their challenges and triumphs. It would align perfectly with the goals of Voices for Change." James's heart swelled with excitement at the possibilities. "That sounds incredible. We can create a platform that not only celebrates diversity, but also educates the public on the importance of inclusivity in the culinary arts." Inspiration from within. As the partnership blossomed, James and Chef Maria began to brainstorm ideas for a new initiative called Culinary Voices. The program would feature a series of events and videos showcasing chefs from diverse backgrounds, sharing their stories and culinary creations. They envisioned pop-up dinners highlighting traditional recipes from different cultures, with each event accompanied by discussions on the importance of representation in the food industry. The aim was not only to tantalize taste buds, but also to spark conversations around race, culture, and inclusivity. As they worked on the logistics, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was an opportunity to create change on a larger scale, using the power of food, a universal language, to bridge gaps and bring people together. A personal connection. In the midst of their busy schedules, James also made a conscious effort to connect with individuals who had reached out to him through the Voices for Change platform. One afternoon, he received an email from a high school student named Aisha, who had written a heartfelt letter about her experiences with bullying and racial discrimination at her school. James was deeply moved by her bravery in sharing her story and reached out to her directly. He arranged a video call, wanting to hear more about her journey. When the call began, he was greeted by Aisha's bright smile, though he could see the hint of sadness behind her eyes. "Thank you for meeting with me, Mr. Hall," she said, her voice shaky but filled with determination. "I wanted to tell you how much your campaign means to me. I felt so alone in my struggles, but knowing that there are people fighting for change gives me hope." James listened attentively as Aisha spoke about her experiences, the isolation she felt, and her dreams of becoming an advocate for other young people facing similar challenges. Her passion and resilience reminded him of why he had started this journey in the first place. "Aisha, you're not alone," he assured her. "Your voice matters, and I'd love to help you amplify it. Would you be interested in participating in our upcoming events? We could feature your story and share your insights with others." Her eyes lit up, and she nodded enthusiastically. "Really? That would mean everything to me." They continued to discuss how Aisha could get involved, brainstorming ways to create a platform for youth voices within the Voices for Change initiative. James felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. He was not only fighting for change, but also empowering the next generation to be advocates in their own right, creating the future. As the days turned into weeks, the Voices for Change campaign continued to evolve and expand. Each collaboration, each story shared, and each workshop held reinforced their commitment to creating an inclusive environment within the hospitality industry and beyond. James realized that the journey was not just about addressing issues of racial bias, but also about fostering a culture of empathy, understanding, and respect. He saw the movement becoming a tapestry of interconnected stories, woven together by the shared experiences of individuals from all walks of life. With each new partnership, workshop, and event, the campaign took on a life of its own, growing in ways he had never anticipated. James felt invigorated by the sense of community that was blossoming around him, and he was eager to see where it would lead next. As he prepared for the upcoming Culinary Voices event, James couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come since that fateful day at the Grand Westwood Hotel. What had started as a deeply personal confrontation had transformed into a collective movement, sparking conversations and inspiring change across the nation. The challenges ahead were daunting, but James was ready to face them head-on. He was no longer just a man fighting for his dignity. He was a leader, an advocate, and a catalyst for change. And with each voice that joined the chorus of Voices for Change, the movement grew louder, more powerful, and more unstoppable, transforming the future. The morning sun poured through the office windows, casting a warm glow on the bustling space that had become the hub for the Voices for Change campaign. James Hall sat at his desk, a steaming cup of coffee in hand, as he reviewed the schedule for the upcoming Culinary Voices event. It was the culmination of weeks of hard work, collaboration, and the shared passion for advocating change in the culinary industry. The event would take place at Chef Maria's renowned restaurant, where she had generously offered her space to host a night dedicated to celebrating diversity in cuisine and the stories behind it. James had a mixture of excitement and nervousness bubbling inside him. This was a chance to bring their vision to life, showcasing the power of food to unite and inspire. Final preparations. As James went through the checklist for the event, Maria entered the office, her energy infectious. "Have you seen the RSVPs? We're at capacity. This is going to be huge," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. James felt a rush of excitement. "That's incredible. I can't believe how quickly this has come together. It's amazing to see so many people eager to support the cause. We've got chefs from different backgrounds coming to share their stories and culinary creations. It's going to be a night to remember," Maria said, pulling out her own notebook filled with last-minute details. As they went over the final arrangements, James felt a sense of gratitude wash over him. They had built something meaningful together, a platform that not only highlighted the struggles of individuals facing discrimination, but also celebrated the richness that diversity brought to the culinary arts. The event was set to feature a series of interactive cooking demonstrations, where chefs would showcase their signature dishes while sharing personal anecdotes about their cultural heritage. Attendees would have the opportunity to taste the dishes and engage with the chefs, creating a dynamic environment that fostered connection and understanding. An unexpected challenge. However, just days before the event, they encountered an unexpected challenge. A major storm swept through the region, leading to widespread power outages and disrupting transportation. James and Maria watched the weather reports with growing concern, knowing that their carefully laid plans were at risk. "Do you think we should postpone the event?" Maria asked, her brow furrowed with worry. "We can't risk the safety of our guests." James took a deep breath, weighing their options. "I don't want to give up on this. We've worked too hard. Let's reach out to the chefs and see what they think. If they're on board, we can adjust and make it work." They quickly contacted the participating chefs, and to their relief, each one expressed a desire to move forward despite the weather. "We're committed to this cause," Chef Maria Gonzalez said over the phone. "Let's adapt and make it happen. We'll figure it out together." With the chef's support, James and Maria brainstormed creative solutions to ensure the event could proceed safely. They decided to host the event indoors at the restaurant, where they could control the environment, and created a contingency plan for food preparation using portable stoves and generators. The night of Culinary Voices. The night of the Culinary Voices event arrived, and the atmosphere in Chef Maria's restaurant buzzed with anticipation. Despite the storm outside, the warmth and energy within the restaurant created a welcoming ambience. As guests arrived, they were greeted by the enticing aroma of spices and herbs wafting from the kitchen. The walls were adorned with colorful artwork that celebrated the diversity of cultures represented by the chefs. James felt a wave of gratitude wash over him as he observed the crowd. Families, friends, and individuals from various backgrounds gathered to celebrate the shared love of food and community. James took a moment to gather himself before stepping onto the stage. "Thank you all for being here tonight, despite the weather," he began, his voice resonating through the room. "This event is a testament to our commitment to fostering inclusivity in the culinary world. Together, we're here to celebrate not just the food, but the stories and cultures behind it." The crowd erupted in applause, and James felt a rush of encouragement. He introduced the first chef, who stepped up to the stage, ready to share her culinary expertise along with her personal narrative. Stories of resilience and flavor. As each chef took their turn, the room transformed into a tapestry of flavors and stories. Chef Annika, a talented cook with Caribbean roots, prepared a traditional jerk chicken dish while recounting her childhood memories of cooking with her grandmother. "Food is more than just sustenance. It's a connection to my heritage," she explained, her eyes shining with passion. "Every spice tells a story, and every dish carries the love and traditions of those who came before me." Attendees watched in rapt attention as she plated her dish, the vibrant colors drawing gasps of delight. Guests sampled the food, savoring the spices and flavors that danced on their palates, each bite a celebration of Annika's cultural history. Next, Chef Samuel took the stage, a Mexican-American chef known for his innovative take on traditional recipes. He prepared a fusion taco, blending flavors from his grandmother's recipes with contemporary culinary techniques. As he cooked, he shared stories of the struggles he faced in breaking into the culinary industry, where he often felt like an outsider. "I faced my share of challenges, but I'd learned that the key is to stay true to who you are," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Our identities are not just something we carry. They're the very essence of what makes our food unique and special." With each chef's story, the crowd grew more engaged, nodding in understanding and sharing in the emotions of resilience and pride. James felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him, knowing they were fostering connection and understanding through the power of storytelling, engagement, and connection. As the night progressed, attendees mingled and shared their own experiences, creating a vibrant tapestry of voices. James and Maria encouraged everyone to engage with the chefs and share their thoughts, creating an atmosphere of openness and dialogue. At one point, James noticed Aisha, the young student he had connected with earlier, deep in conversation with Chef Maria. They were exchanging ideas and stories, their shared enthusiasm palpable. "Look at her go," Maria said, beaming. "This is what it's all about. Giving people like her the opportunity to connect and be heard." James nodded, feeling proud of the impact they were making. "We're creating a space for the next generation to step up and advocate for change. This is just the beginning." The power of community. As the event began to wind down, James took a moment to reflect on the night. The storm outside had not dampened the spirits within the restaurant. Instead, it had become a backdrop for a night of celebration and solidarity. Before the final dish was served, James took the stage one last time, his heart full. "I want to thank each of you for joining us tonight. Your presence here signifies a commitment to change, to supporting one another, and to celebrating the diverse cultures that enrich our lives. Let's continue to uplift each other and advocate for inclusivity in every space we occupy." The crowd erupted in applause, the energy in the room electric. James felt a wave of hope wash over him, knowing that they were all part of something greater, a movement that transcended the boundaries of food and culture. As guests began to depart, many expressed their gratitude, sharing how inspired they felt after hearing the chef's stories. Some even mentioned wanting to get involved in the campaign, eager to lend their voices and support. Reflecting on the journey. Later that night, as the last guests left and the restaurant quieted down, James and Maria took a moment to catch their breath. The adrenaline from the event still buzzed in the air, and they exchanged satisfied smiles. "I can't believe how powerful tonight was," Maria said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We brought people together in ways I never imagined." James nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "This is just the start. We need to keep this momentum going. There are so many more stories to share and voices to amplify." As they began to clean up, James reflected on the journey that had brought them here, the struggles, the triumphs, and the unyielding determination to create change. It had all started with a personal confrontation at the Grand Westwood Hotel, a moment that had ignited a fire within him. Now, as he looked around the bustling restaurant filled with laughter and camaraderie, he knew that their campaign was not just a fleeting moment but a lasting movement. The foundation they had built was solid, and the network of allies they had created would only grow stronger. A vision for the future. As the evening came to a close, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. They would continue to host events, workshops, and initiatives that would foster inclusivity and raise awareness about the importance of diversity. He envisioned the campaign expanding into schools, empowering young people to share their stories and advocate for themselves. They could develop educational programs that taught empathy and understanding, equipping the next generation with the tools to challenge prejudice and build bridges in their communities. Together, they would continue to fight against discrimination in all its forms, ensuring that everyone felt valued and heard. With each voice added to the chorus of voices for change, the movement grew louder, more powerful, and more unstoppable. As James and Maria locked up the restaurant for the night, They exchanged a knowing glance. They were not merely creating a campaign. They were transforming the future, one voice at a time. And with that commitment, they stepped into the night, ready to embrace the challenges and victories that lay ahead on this remarkable journey.